nsou Model 1, History of English Literature, Old and Middle English Period. Before we start with the discussion of this Old English literature, let us understand the Anglo-Saxon. The Anglo-Saxons were comprised of people from Germanic tribes who migrated to Great Britain from continental Europe. They inhabited the islands from 450 to 1066. In the 5th century, Britain fell from Roman rule and established an independent culture and society. It was during the second half of the 5th century that more and more Anglo-Saxons arrived to take land for themselves. It is for this reason that the time of the Anglo-Saxons is usually thought of as beginning about 450. It both begins and ends with an invasion. The first Roman invasion in 55 BC and the Roman invasion of William the Conqueror in 1066. Adding between were the Anglo-Saxons and then the Vikings. There is overlap between the various invaders, and through it, all the Celtic British population remained largely in place. So the Anglo-Saxon period in Britain spans approximately the 6 centuries from 410 to 1066 AD. The period used to be known as the Dark Ages, mainly because written sources for the early years of Saxon invasions are scarce. Bede gave a precise date, 449 AD. The writer of Ecclesiastical History of English Literature, Venerable Bede. For the first time, he states the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons, and he said they came from three tribes: the Angles, Angles, well, to say Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, who themselves came from different parts of the Germany and Denmark. Many Anglo-Saxons came peacefully to find land to farm. Their homelands in Scandinavia often flooded. Whole families set sail across the sea to live in Britain. They brought tools, weapons, and farm animals with them and built villages with the new homes. The Anglo-Saxons came from Scandinavian Germany. They settled in Britain between AD 110 and AD 1066. So the Anglo-Saxon came from Scandinavian Germany, as already told. The meaning, the term used historically to describe any member of the Germanic peoples who from the 5th century CE to the time of the Norman conquest inhabited and ruled territories that are today part of England and Wales. So they came from three very powerful Germanic peoples: the Saxons, Angles, and Jutes. The people of Kent and inhabitants of the Isle of Wight, Wight, are of Jutish origin, and also those opposite the Isle of Wight, Wight, that are part of the Kingdom of Wessex, which is fully today called the Nation of the Jutes. In AD 43, the Romans' conquest of Britain began. The Romans maintained control of their province of Britannia until the early 8th century. The end of Roman rule in Britain facilitated the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain, which historians often regard as the origin of England and the English people. The continental Saxons are no longer a distinctive ethnic group or country, but their names live on the names of several regions and states of Germany, including Lower Saxony, which includes central parts of original Saxon homeland, known as Old Saxony. Saxony in Upper Saxony as well as Saxony in Halt. During the encounter, King Harold II, the last Anglo-Saxon king of England, was killed. So William, Duke of Normandy, also known as William the Conqueror, William the Bastard, was the victor, and so began the Norman conquest of England, Kingdom of England. So during this encounter, King Harold II, the last Anglo-Saxon king of England, was killed. According to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, the Saxon chief Cerdic, Cerdic of Wessex, and his son Cynric, capital Cynric, arrived in Britain in 495, defeated the Welsh and then the Britons' forces, and founded the Kingdom of West Saxons or Wessex. So, writing in the mid 6th century, Gildas, capital Gildas, describes the battle being fought between an army of Britons led by Ambrosius Aurelianus, Ambrosius, capital Aurelianus, and the invading Anglo Saxons. According to him, the resisting Britons were victorious. Now, it is said that Anglo-Saxon invasion beginning in the 4th century AD added about 250,000 people to British population of 1 or to 2 millions. The profound impact of the Anglo-Saxon had on the English language, from bringing Old English to England and shaping its vocabulary, grammar, and alphabet, can be still be seen today. And the legacy continues to be an important part of the language history and development. Historically, the Anglo-Saxon period denotes the period in Britain between about 450 and 1066, after the initial settlements up until the Norman conquest. So the history of the Anglo-Saxons, the history of the cultural identity. Within 9 years, the Vikings had attacked and established their rule, or Danelaw, over the kingdom of Northumbria and East Anglia, their former Anglo-Saxon kings having been put to the south. So the Vikings also ravaged the once mighty East Mercia, driving King Burgred, Burgred overseas. Most Anglo-Saxons were farmers and lived off the land. They were able to make equipments such as plows and tools to help them in their work. They would grind wheat to make flour so they could make bread. Some Anglo-Saxons were skilled craftsmen, men who made decorative jewelry such as brooches and necklaces. The first Anglo-Saxon king was Althestern, Athelsta. He was an Anglo-Saxon king who lived from 894 to 939. He is regarded by historians as the first king of England. Athelstan was the son of Edward the Elder and the grandson of Alfred the Great. Saxons were one of the German tribes that settled in England in the 5th century, and the name predictably means from Saxony. It could mean dagger or short sword, referring to the kind of knife known as sax, S-A-X in German, sach, S-A-C-H-S in Old High German, and seax, S-E-A-X in Old English, giving the name an edge. So, the Anglo-Saxon known in Old English as the Anglo-Saxon, A-N-G-U-L-S-E-A-X-A-N, shaped much of the English language, culture, and identity. Descended from a hodgepodge of Germanic peoples who migrated to parts of Britain. They inhabited and ruled territories in England and Wales for 6 centuries. So, Anglo-Saxon period includes the creation of an English nation with many of the aspects that survive today, including regional government of shires and hundreds. During this period, Christianity was re-established and there was a flowering of literature and language. There were actually 3 main peoples: the Saxons, the Angles, the Angles, and the Jews. After these people moved to Britain, they became known as the Anglo-Saxons. Eventually, the name Angles, Angles, became the English, and the land became known as England. The Saxons are named after a type of sword they used called the sax. At the beginning of the Anglo-Saxon period, paganism was the key religion. People would worship a number of gods and goddesses, each responsible for their own areas of expertise. Anglo-Saxon pagans also believed in going to the afterlife, where they died, taking in items they were buried with. As the years went out, in Anglo-Saxon England, the role of the Anglo-Saxon continued to evolve. A brand new group of warriors emerged known as the Huskars. So,